Joining me now with more on President Trump's upcoming agenda is incoming White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller. Stephen, it's great to have you this morning. Congratulations to you. We're very interested in hearing about the road ahead. Let me start off with the conversation I just had with Bill Hagerty, and that is about the priority of border and energy, putting tax extension later in the year. Walk us through why that's the thinking, and if you, in fact, believe that is how this takes place.
Well, I think the plan is to put both on a fast track. First, you can get John Thune and Lindsey Graham have promised that they can get a full funding package for the border, the most significant border security investment in American history, which would be the biggest domestic policy win in at least 50 years, to the president's desk in January or early February. That would mean a massive increase in ICE officers working on the deportation operation that Tom Homan just laid out. That would mean a historic increase in border agents, a pay raise for both, full funding for military operations, full funding for ICE beds, full funding for air and marine operations, full funding for all of the barriers and technology that you need to ensure there's never another Godaway entering this country. Now, President Trump, regardless, on day one is going to issue a series of executive orders that seal the border shut and begin the largest deportation operation in American history. But you're talking about what would be the largest investment in immigration and border security. This is something the Republicans have been talking about for decades, but with Donald Trump, this is something that is going to happen. It will be the most important and significant, as I said, domestic policy achievement in half a century. Then the plan, as Senator Thune has laid out, as incoming Majority Leader Thune has laid out, would be to move immediately at that point. Now we're talking in January, early February, immediately to the comprehensive tax reform package. That's where you have to figure out SALT, right? The state and local deductions. That's where you're going to figure out about different policy baselines that you're going to use for the tax cuts, about corporate tax reform, about trade reform, manufacturing reform, and all those tax policies. And with the 2 or 3 seat majority in the House, obviously, that's going to take some time. So this isn't nobody, I repeat, nobody is even talking or considering delaying tax. What the Senate has talked about doing is giving the president, within a week or two of taking the oath of office, the most significant domestic policy achievement in at least 50 years. Our Border Patrol, our ICE officers, and every element of our domestic security operation will be fully funded to take down the cartels and eradicate the criminal gang threat in this country once and for all. Tax reform will happen. It will happen, and it will be the greatest tax bill that we've ever seen. Now, these are not final. These are ongoing discussions and negotiations. But I just want to be very clear that no one's talking about delaying tax reform. What they're talking about doing is, before government funding expires in March, before the debt ceiling expires in June, just days after he puts his hand on that Bible, giving President Trump the biggest domestic policy win that anybody has seen in our lifetimes, Maria.
Yeah, I understand that. And I know nobody knows more about immigration than you. And nobody knows more about these threats than you. And, of course, Tom Homan as well. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate your work. But, Stephen, is there any way that, or risk that you believe is out there, that if you wait until later in the year to extend those tax cuts in a separate reconciliation package — you're already doing one reconciliation package earlier in the year — if you wait for a second reconciliation in the end of the year, do you believe that there's risk that that doesn't happen?
No, there's zero risk of that for a few reasons. And again, these are ongoing conversations and discussions, Maria, so nothing's even remotely final yet. But there's zero chance of that because, as you know, the tax cuts expire this year. And there's not a chance in the entire world — they expire in the fall — that Republicans are not going to fully extend and expand the Trump tax cuts. There's absolutely zero chance of that. And we're going to have more members a few months from now than we do right now. And you're not just going to have tax cuts, but you're going to have other fiscal reforms that members badly want. You're going to have energy reforms, maybe additional border reforms. But the very important point in all of this is that with the current size of the majority in the House, there isn't a proposal to pass taxes in February. That's going to take some period of time. Remember, the Trump tax cuts in 2017 were passed in December of that year. We can significantly beat, by the way, that record, significantly beat it. And when President Trump comes into office right away, he's going to fully deregulate the energy market, fully deregulate the financial market, fully deregulate this economy. You're going to get a jolt of job growth and job creation and inflation relief from his deregulatory agenda, unlike anything anyone has ever seen before.
Yeah,
but it's really important to underscore that what John Thune is talking about is not delaying anything. In fact, when you have a massive win, when you've delivered the American people the biggest, most important, most comprehensive border package in history, just days after he takes the oath of office, that kind of momentum, that kind of teamwork and team building will speed the delivery of tax reform. But again, whether we do it in one track or two tracks, remember, Democrats did 2 reconciliation bills.
Yeah.
The president is going to get his agenda enacted through Congress, and it will be historic.
Real quick, Stephen, before you go on foreign policy, what are President Trump's priorities going into office less than 50 days away as we watch Syria collapsing, as we watch Ukraine wanting a ceasefire deal, and, of course, China on the march?
Well, obviously, the events that are unfolding in Syria are a massive setback for Russia, a massive setback for Iran. As President has said, we don't want anything to do with governing the fractious nightmare that is Syria, and obviously we have to have strong immigration controls, to my earlier point, to make sure that nobody from that hellhole that is unfolding right now that has negative or murderous intentions enters the United States. But this just puts more pressure on the regime in Iran to enter a more peaceful phase, and it puts more pressure on Russia to enter into a ceasefire. President Trump's priority, as he has outlined, is going to be peace in the region.
Okay, we will leave it there. Great interview, so informative. Stephen, best wishes to you. Stephen Miller joining us this morning on the upcoming administration. Thank you, sir. We'll be right back.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.